There is a skill more valuable than persuasion, more powerful than charisma, and more enduring than intelligence. It is the ability to observe. Most people move through life looking without truly seeing. They hear words but miss intentions. They notice actions but ignore patterns. They judge character by first impressions while overlooking the quiet habits that reveal who a person truly is. In a world where appearances are carefully managed and identities are often performed rather than lived, observation becomes one of the greatest forms of power. People rarely reveal their true character through the promises they make. Words are easy to shape because they are often influenced by emotion, desire, or the need to create a favorable impression. Anyone can speak about loyalty when loyalty has not yet been tested, or claim honesty when telling the truth carries no personal cost. This is why judging people by what they say often leads to disappointment. Human nature has a remarkable ability to present an ideal version of itself, especially during first meetings or in situations where gaining trust is beneficial. However, while words can be carefully controlled, patterns of behavior are much more difficult to disguise. A single action may be accidental, but repeated actions gradually reveal the values, priorities, and habits that define a person's character. If someone consistently arrives late, breaks promises, avoids responsibility, or changes their behavior depending on who is watching, these repeated patterns communicate far more than any explanation they offer. Observation requires the patience to notice consistency over time instead of reacting to isolated moments. Many people become emotionally attached to promises because they want to believe the best in others. They overlook repeated warning signs in the hope that future words will eventually become reality. This desire often clouds judgment, making excuses seem more convincing than evidence. A wise observer resists this temptation. They understand that character is demonstrated through what a person repeatedly chooses to do, not through what they repeatedly claim they will do. Patterns also reveal hidden priorities. A person who constantly says they value friendship but only reaches out when they need something is showing where their true interests lie. Someone who speaks about respect but repeatedly treats others with impatience is revealing the gap between their image and their reality. Over time, these behaviors become impossible to ignore because consistency always exposes the truth. This approach does not require becoming cynical or assuming the worst about everyone. Instead, it requires trusting evidence over emotion. By paying attention to recurring actions rather than impressive promises, you make better decisions about whom to trust, whom to avoid, and whom to allow into your life. Human behavior follows habits, and habits create patterns. Those patterns quietly reveal a person's real character long before they ever admit it themselves, providing clear insight for anyone patient enough to observe without rushing to judgment. Most people enter conversations with the intention of being heard rather than with the desire to truly understand. They prepare their next response while the other person is still speaking, eager to express their own opinions, defend their beliefs, or tell their own stories. In doing so, they miss countless details that quietly reveal the thoughts, emotions, and intentions of the person in front of them. Listening is far more than simply hearing words. It is the discipline of giving someone your full attention without immediately judging, interrupting, or redirecting the conversation toward yourself. Human nature often exposes itself in the spaces between carefully chosen sentences. A slight hesitation before answering, a sudden change in tone, an unnecessary explanation, or a contradiction between one statement and another can reveal far more than a rehearsed response ever could. These subtle clues are only noticed by those who are patient enough to remain silent and observe. Silence has a unique psychological effect because many people become uncomfortable when conversations pause. In an effort to fill the silence, they continue speaking, often revealing personal motivations, insecurities, frustrations, or ambitions they had no intention of sharing. The less you speak, the more opportunity others have to reveal themselves naturally. This does not mean manipulating people or treating every conversation like an interrogation. It means understanding that genuine curiosity often uncovers deeper truths than constant self-expression. Skilled observers ask thoughtful questions and then allow space for honest answers instead of rushing to impress others with their own knowledge. They understand that every conversation is an opportunity to learn something valuable about another person's character. Listening also helps you distinguish between confidence and arrogance, sincerity and performance, wisdom and empty words. Someone who constantly dominates every conversation may reveal a need for attention rather than genuine confidence, while someone who listens carefully before speaking often demonstrates emotional maturity and self-control. The ability to observe these differences comes only through disciplined attention. By speaking less and listening more, you begin noticing patterns that others overlook. You hear what is said, but you also become aware of what is avoided, repeated, or emphasized. Over time, this habit strengthens your judgment because your opinions are based on careful observation rather than first impressions. The greatest advantage of listening is not simply gathering information about others, but developing the patience and clarity that allow you to understand people beyond the surface of their words. Words are carefully chosen, rehearsed, and often shaped to create a particular impression, but emotions are far more difficult to control. A person can prepare a convincing story, offer reassuring promises, or present themselves as calm and confident, yet their emotions frequently reveal what they're trying to conceal. Human psychology has always struggled to keep feelings completely hidden because emotions naturally influence facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, and behavior. This is why an observer should never rely only on what people say. The truth is often found in the emotional signals that accompany their words. Someone may claim to be happy for another person's success, yet a brief expression of disappointment or a forced smile may suggest envy. Another person may insist that criticism does not bother them, while their defensive tone and restless behavior reveal wounded pride. These moments are rarely intentional. They occur because genuine emotions emerge faster than conscious control can suppress them. Pressure makes this even more visible. During moments of stress, disappointment, fear, or unexpected change, the polished image people work so hard to maintain often begins to fade. Patience turns into irritation, confidence becomes insecurity, and kindness may suddenly disappear. These emotional reactions provide valuable insight because they expose habits that remain hidden during comfortable circumstances. Observing emotions does not mean judging someone based on a single difficult moment, but it does require paying attention to repeated emotional patterns. If a person consistently reacts with anger whenever they are challenged, jealousy whenever others succeed, or blame whenever they make a mistake, those reactions reveal important aspects of their character. Emotional habits are often more reliable than carefully chosen words because they emerge from deeply rooted beliefs and values. At the same time, wisdom requires compassion. Everyone experiences moments of frustration or sadness, and no one is emotionally perfect. The goal is not to criticize every emotional response, but to recognize the difference between temporary feelings and consistent patterns. A thoughtful observer understands that emotions are like windows into the inner world of another person. They reveal fears, desires, insecurities, and priorities that words often attempt to disguise. By learning to observe emotional responses with patience and objectivity, you begin seeing beyond appearances, allowing your understanding of people to be guided by authentic behavior rather than polished performances or convincing speeches alone. One of the clearest ways to understand a person's true character is to observe how they treat individuals who have nothing to offer them in return. Most people naturally behave well around those they admire, fear, or hope will benefit their future. They become polite with powerful people, generous toward influential individuals, and respectful in situations where their reputation is at stake. While these behaviors may appear impressive, they do not always reveal genuine character because they are often influenced by self-interest. Real character becomes visible when there is no reward for kindness, no advantage to gain, and no audience to impress. Watch how someone speaks to a waiter after a long day, how they respond to a cleaner, a security guard, a cashier, or a stranger asking for directions. Notice whether they show patience, respect, and basic human dignity, or whether they become dismissive, impatient, and arrogant. These moments often expose values that carefully chosen words cannot hide. Human nature has a tendency to reveal itself most clearly when people believe their behavior carries no significant consequences. A person who consistently treats those in less powerful positions with respect demonstrates that their kindness is part of their identity rather than a performance designed to earn approval. On the other hand, someone who changes their behavior depending on another person's status reveals that their respect is conditional rather than genuine. This inconsistency is an important pattern for an observer to notice because it reflects how they are likely to treat anyone once the need to impress disappears. Power also changes behavior. Give someone even a small amount of authority, and their response often reveals their emotional maturity. Some use influence to encourage and support others, while others use it to dominate, criticize, or inflate their own importance. These choices provide valuable insight into their character because they show what happens when social pressure is removed. Observation requires looking beyond appearances and recognizing that true integrity remains consistent regardless of who is watching. A person of strong character does not reserve kindness for the powerful or generosity for those who can repay them. They understand that respect is not something to be exchanged for personal gain, but something to be offered because it reflects their own principles. By paying attention to these quiet interactions, you gain a deeper understanding of who someone truly is, allowing your trust to be based on consistent behavior rather than polished words or carefully managed first impressions. Patience is one of the rarest qualities in a world that rewards speed, instant opinions, and immediate decisions. Most people feel compelled to make quick judgments about others based on first impressions, confident words, or a single experience. They trust too quickly, reject too quickly, or become emotionally attached before they truly understand the person standing in front of them. An observer takes a different approach. They understand that time is one of the greatest revealers of human character. While appearances can be carefully maintained for a short period, consistency over weeks, months, and years is far more difficult to fake. Patience allows you to witness those moments when carefully constructed images begin to fade and genuine habits quietly emerge. Human nature follows patterns, and those patterns only become visible through careful observation over time. A person may seem generous during the first meeting, loyal during easy circumstances, or confident when everything is going well. The true test comes when life becomes uncomfortable. Pressure, disappointment, success, failure, and unexpected change all reveal different sides of a person's personality. Without patience, you only see the surface. With patience, you begin to understand the deeper qualities that define someone's character. This discipline also protects you from emotional manipulation. Manipulative individuals often rely on urgency because they know that rushed decisions leave little room for careful observation. They encourage immediate trust, quick commitments, or emotional reactions before inconsistencies have time to appear. A patient observer refuses to be hurried. They recognize that genuine people do not fear time because honesty remains consistent. They allow actions to repeat, promise to be tested, and behavior to reveal itself naturally instead of forcing quick conclusions. Patience also strengthens your own judgment because it creates distance between emotion and decision. Instead of reacting impulsively to charm, criticism, or praise, you give yourself the opportunity to evaluate evidence calmly. This approach reduces unnecessary mistakes and helps you build relationships based on reality rather than assumptions. The longer you observe, the more accurate your understanding becomes. Small details that once seemed unimportant begin forming clear patterns, allowing you to distinguish sincerity from performance and integrity from appearance. In this way, patience becomes far more than simply waiting. It becomes a powerful tool of wisdom, giving you the clarity to understand people as they truly are instead of as they temporarily appear. The ability to observe people is not simply a social skill. It is a form of protection that influences nearly every important decision you make. Every relationship, partnership, friendship, and opportunity introduces you to people whose character will eventually affect your life. When you fail to observe carefully, you often rely on appearances, emotions, or first impressions, making yourself vulnerable to disappointment and manipulation. Human nature has always included individuals who know how to create attractive images of themselves. Some use charm to gain trust, others use confidence to hide insecurity, and some use kindness only until they achieve what they want. Without careful observation, these performances can appear convincing because they appeal to emotions rather than evidence. Observation slows this process down. It encourages you to gather information through repeated behavior instead of making decisions based on temporary feelings. This habit makes manipulation far less effective because manipulators depend on emotional reactions and rush judgments. They often create urgency, encourage immediate trust, or attempt to influence your choices before you have time to notice contradictions in their actions. A skilled observer refuses to be hurried. They understand that genuine character remains consistent over time, while false appearances eventually become difficult to maintain. Observation also improves the quality of your decisions beyond personal relationships. It helps you recognize who can be trusted with responsibility, who remains calm under pressure, and who consistently acts according to their values instead of their emotions. These insights reduce unnecessary risks because your choices are guided by reality rather than assumptions. At the same time, observation protects you from your own emotional biases. It reminds you to separate hope from evidence and excitement from truth. Instead of believing someone because they tell you what you want to hear, you begin evaluating whether their actions consistently support their words. This disciplined approach develops emotional intelligence, allowing you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Over time, you become less vulnerable to deception because your confidence is built on careful understanding instead of blind trust. You learn to identify warning signs before they become serious problems and recognize genuine integrity before placing your confidence in someone. Mastering observation does not make you suspicious of everyone around you. Instead, it makes you wiser, more patient, and more capable of building relationships with people whose actions consistently reflect honesty, respect, and reliability, creating a life guided by sound judgment rather than repeated disappointment.